everybody, and welcome to part 2 of our celebration album and keepsake box. Now in part 1 we made our lovely keepsake box where we've got our little lift up lid, and then we've got a removable and movable divider. Okay, and then we've got our flap that comes down here where we can tuck the album in. So for part 2 we're going to be making the album. We're making a start on all the pages. So let's get crafting. Right, so here we are. We're going to put together our 5x7 inch album cover. Okay, so this is my two 5x7s, the front and back, and then I've got the spine, which is 2 1/4 by 7 inches. Now I'm going to use the construction tape method, but I have put on the pattern that you can use black card to cover it, which the measurements I've given you is 14.5 inches by 9 inches. And what you can do is that if you want to, you can pop over to Master It on Mondays on our YouTube channel, and I'll show you how to cover it with the paper, okay, with the black cardstock. But I'm going to do the tape. So I've got my construction tape here, so I'm literally just going to give myself a long strip there. Oh, try not to get it stuck on everything already. Okay, and I'm going to come in not quite halfway, and I'm just going to attach that bit there, and then I'm going to give myself about 1/8 of an inch gap between the spine and the front cover, making sure that I'm lining the top and the bottom so they're nice and straight. And now I can just bring that over, fold that down. We're going to come up. I'm just going to seal that. Let's just get the scissors. I'm going to cut that off. So we're just going to overlap that. Okay, and now I can see that that is going to work absolutely fine. Just get my little bone folder. Just going to pop that in there. Just make sure that's gone in nice and smoothly. Okay. And we're going to do the same on the other side. And I'm doing it so that the join comes on the inside, so you don't see that on the outside of the album itself. So let's just take this on here, and just going to bring this one in, and again about 1/8 of an inch. So it allows for the thickness of the cardstock and enough sort of like bending room for it to go around. So we're just going to bring that tape down on there. That's going to come up like so, and we can just give that a little cut like that. Just going to come along with my bone folder. There we go. So now we've got that, and as you can see on the outside we've got nice straight edging on there. And now we're just going to wrap the black cardstock, the black construction tape all round the 4 sides. Now in some of my previous videos I do colour in the corners with a bit of black ink. So let me just grab my pen. Here we are. And this is just in case I cut the tape a little bit short. So I just make sure I've got those covered in and do the edges so that when we come to wrap it we don't see the construction board through the tape, just in case we don't quite wrap it. So just a little bit like so. I'm just going to do the same on here, but because with all good intentions hopefully we wrap it okay, but you can guarantee that if I haven't done it I will see some construction board through it. There we go. Right, we're just going to wrap that on there. Right, okay, so that's our 4 sides done. And oh, a bit of black ink on there. Got it everywhere, look. Right, okay. So now we're going to get our tape, and I always do the long sides first. Okay, and I'm just going to come in about halfway Like so. I'm just going to give that a little snip, and we're just going to fold that over. So I start off in the middle, and I'm just going to work my way along, and I'm just giving it a little bit of a tug because I don't want any air bubbles coming in on that edge as well. I'm just come along like so. There we are. I'll just get our bone folder, just going to give that a little push in there, and then now I can just squeeze those ends together and trim them off. So that's 1 and 2. Okay, just pop that on there, and then we're going to turn that round and do the other side. Like so, here we are. Line that up, just get another little snip. And again, just exactly what we did on the other side, just going to pull that just a little bit, smooth that out, try not to get any creases in it. Okay, get my little bone folder, there we go, just going to tuck that in there, and I can just trim off these end pieces. 1, 2. There we go. Get rid of the tape. And now for the side. So that's working okay. That looks all nice and smooth on the outside. And we're just going to do each of the corners. Now, when I come to do the shorter ends, I try and make sure that the tape is actually cut to the length of that side. Because what we're going to do is we're going to mite the corners in the tape, just so it gives it a nicer finish. Right, okay, so I'm just going to bring that in. That's about halfway. And what I'm going to do is when that folds over, so I'm just going to, trying to work out which way I need to cut it that way. So we're going to come in like so, and I'm going to do the same on that side. Oh, the tape got stuck on there. There we are. And I can fold that bit in. So it looks like we've got a nicely mitered corner. Okay, and then on the outside, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pull that corner back because it's just tape stuck on tape, and now I can just snip that at an angle, and again that will give me that nice mitered finish. You don't have to do this, it's just me. I just like the finish on it. Okay, so you get a nice sort of diagonal point across there, and then we're just going to do exactly the same on the other side. So I'm just going to cut that, stand that up. Okay, and here we go. I'm just going to load that once it gets off my fingers. Line that up. I'm a little bit over on there, but I can trim that. Okay. Okay, so we're now going to cut that on that piece and do the same on this side. I can fold that in. There we go. And now I can fold back outside and just cut that at the diagonal. And here we are, just our other little bit. Okay, and that is our cover done. Okay, so the next thing that we are going to do is, that's it, no, that's stuck on there, right, is our hinge. Okay, so the hinge is 7 inches by 6¼ inches, and I've already pre-scored on the 7-inch side at, oh, that goes my pen, 1½ inch, 2 inches, 2½ inch, 3 inches, 3½ inches, 4 inches, 4½, 5, and then 5½ inches. Okay, so that gives us a nice even gap all the way along. So let me just double check those measurements. So yeah, so we've got 1½ 2, 2½ 3, 3½ 4, 4½ 5, 5½. And what I do is I always leave 1½ inches at either end, because that will help with the overlap coming over onto the covers. So once you've done that, what I've gone ahead and done is I've pre-folded. So I've gone back on myself, and then I've folded, and then I've gone back on myself. So you end up with like 3 mountains, okay? And that's what you're aiming for. So just fold the papers backwards and forwards until you get it to this shape, okay? And then on the other side, what we're going to do is we're going to mark it up. So this is my 1½ bit. So on this first panel here that I've already pre-scored, I'm going to put a T, then I'm going to put a 0, and then I'm going to put a G. All right, and then I'm going to repeat it, T O G T O. And what that means is that where the T is where we're going to put the tape. The O means that there's nothing there. All right, and then the G is for the gap, and then we repeat that all the way along. So let's just grab my lovely red liner tape. Now I'm using 9mm. Okay, we do have this in our shop. You get a whole 50 meters on a roll, so it's really good value. Right, okay, so I'm just going to put the tape where I've put the T's. Okay, so we're just going to snip that, miss the O, miss the G, then we come to the next T. And because this is a 3 hinge album, we are going to need 3 lots of tape. Okay, so that's 1, that's 2, and then we miss the O, we miss the G, and there's the other T. You'll notice that we don't have a G on the end, and that's absolutely fine, so don't panic if you suddenly think, oh, should I have done another score line? Absolutely not. Okay, so let's get my lovely burnish. Just going to give that a good rub down, like so. Okay, and now I'm going to get my pokey tool, and I'm just going to lift off the tape on one T, and I'm going to fold the tape onto the O or the 0, okay, like so. And now I can fold that back, and then I should have just the G showing next. Then I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to take the T off, I'm going to fold it over onto the O, and then I'm going to bring that back. So now I've got a G and a G, and then the last one will come in like so, and then I'm going to fold that over and bring that back, and that gives me just 2 G's, but I've got on this side my 3 hinges. So now that I've done that, we're just going to go in and give it a good burnish. So I burnish them all one way, then I fold over the hinges and give them a good burnish the other way. Okay, so that is our hinge done. Now, before we stick our hinge in, there are two things I'm going to double check. I'm just going to see whether or not this hinge will cover over the black of where I folded up on the edge. Now, if you find that perhaps it's a little bit short, then by all means add a little bit of extra black tape on there, but I think I'm gonna just get away with that, so that's good. But we need to put in our bit of ribbon, or what we're going to put in on the back to you know, be able to pull the album out of our box. So I've got some lovely ribbon here, and I'm using the black, and it's an inch thick, so I'm just looking to see roughly if I've got a little handle to pull that out with a bit of tape to go in. So let's just measure that, which is about 6.5 inches. So I'm just going to cut that. Okay, like so. Just put my little rubber over there just to stop that. So this is going to come on the outside. Okay, but I do need my papers, my spine paper, to cut the slot for that to tuck in and then stick down. So let's grab my papers and then we can get that put together. So I've got my bit of paper on my patterned paper, and I've distress inked and faux stitched all the way round. So let's just bring in my pad. Now what I want to do is I've put here I tried a couple of different measurements, but I've decided to go 1.5 inches from each end and coming in at 1/2 inch either side to get that 1 inch slot. So I'm just going to cut that like so. Okay, so I've just got that slot there, and I'm coming in at 1.5 inches on the other side from the bottom, and 1/2 inch either side. That gives me the inch in the center to tuck the ribbon in. Okay, now I'm just going to put a bit of red liner tape because I find that's easier to hold in situ a lot better than glue. So I'm just going to cut myself a little bit here, and we're just going to stick that on like so, and I'm just going to do the same on the other side. Oh, there we are. So I'm coming in probably about 1 inch on the tape, of the tape on the ribbon. Okay, but when that goes in, that's going to give me a nice shaped handle. All right, so now we've got those cut, just going to thread that through, or you could have put the ribbon through and then put the tape on. Doesn't matter too much which way round you did it. I think I did it the other way round for the box, so just makes that easier. Okay, so there we go. So that'll be the tape, and then that will give me a nice little handle to pull. So I'm just going to take the tape off. Okay, come on, tape. Doesn't want to, that's it. Okay, grip that, and I'm just going to pull that down to where that tape is, and I'm just going to stick that down. Okay, so we've got one side in, and then I'm just going to come and do exactly the same on the other side. Now I've put ribbon on mine, but you could put a little draw pull, or you could make the handle that we've made for the box. You could use the same sort of handle on that if you don't want to put ribbon on there, but I quite like the ribbon. And this is 1 inch wide, this ribbon. Right, okay, so I'm happy with that. That can stick down. Okay, and because it's going on the back of the spine and it's going to be pulled quite a bit, I'm going to cover this with red liner tape so we get a good fixing on there. So I'm just going to run that. Oh, and I went a little bit wonky with the paper. There we go, with the tape rather. That's it. Just trying to get it right on the edge there. Okay, so that's one side. I'm just going to snip those little bits of whispers off the ribbon that are showing. Okay, and then we're just going to do the other side. Here we go. Now I'm using the 25mm red liner tape, so this is nice and quick using this stuff. Okay, all right, so we're just going to give that a good rub, and now I'm going to peel off the tape and we're just going to add some wiggle glue. Okay, just come in on that edge, got that. There we are, just so that we get an opportunity to stick this down. Now, because this paper is non-directional on the other side, and we've centralised our ribbon, that's going to make it a lot easier to attach this. But obviously, if you have got directional paper, you need to make sure what's going to be your top and your bottom. Okay, so I'm just going to turn that over, and I'm going to stand up for this. Okay, let's move that out of the way now. Right, I'm just going to centre that in the middle of that spine, making sure that we've got about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. So just coming in and around and down like so. And now that is stuck fast. That is not going anywhere, and I suppose I could have come over a little fraction more, but you know what, that's fine, that's fine. And we've got a nice sort of grip on there as well for the to pull it out of the album. Okay, so now we've put our ribbon on the back there, we'll come back to the inside and we're going to now attach our hinge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the red liner tape. Now I do this in strips. I always do the middle one first. Okay, so we always put a strip down the middle first, because when we come to stick this on, we're going to do it in stages. All right. Okay, so that's in the middle. I'm going to come to either end with the big wide one, and again, because this is part of the construction, that's why I'm using the strong red liner tape. Okay, I'm going to turn this round and we're going to do it on the other side like so, trying to get it as close to that edge as I can. I'm just going to snip that, and I've got 2 strips there, so I'm just going to get my 9mm and put a couple of strips in. So basically I'm filling the whole of the back of this. Okay, now you could use double-sided sheets and you cut it down to fit across the back if you don't have like the red liner tape. But this stuff is so good. And it's really strong, but it's not very forgiving. Right, so let's just give this a really good burnish. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to peel off the middle one first, and we're going to centre that Okay, that's why we've done the middle one. So we put that one down first so we can see exactly where we're going to put that. And I need to make sure that I've got the same distance from the top to the top of the hinge and the same at the bottom, and that this middle hinge is centered in the middle of our spine. Okay, so there's a couple of things to look out for that. So I'm just going to, yeah, okay. Now, if you're unsure, you can put a little pencil mark either end and then you know what you're aiming for. Okay, but let's take off this first bit of red liner tape and I'm going to add some glue to this. There we go. Just add our glue. Okay. And I'm going to stand up for this because I want to make sure I get it all in alignment. Here we are. So making sure the top and the bottom is about the same. Okay, and I think I'm about there. And having the glue will allow us just to, see, I've just need to come over just a fraction more. Will allow us just to move it slightly if we need to. Now, God forbid you put it on and it's really wonky. Okay, what you can do is get a heat gun and just run that across that just to loosen that tackiness of the glue. Then you can peel it off and readdress it. Okay, so that's gone down. Okay, so now we're coming to the next bit. Now I'm just checking here that when I come across here, I've got a tiny gap showing there on the tape. So I'm just going to tack a little bit of tape underneath that. Although I will be covering this with patterned paper, I just don't want to see any of the construction board underneath it. So it's just how I've folded over the tape. So do just check that out before we go ahead and stick everything else down. But everything else is going to be covered, so that's good. All right, so now we've got that one done. What we're going to do is we're going to unpeel the next one. Okay, I don't need to put any glue on here now because we've got it lined up. Okay, and I can drop that one down because it doesn't go over where the spine edge is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my bone folder and I'm just going to go in and start creasing that paper down. Okay, let's give that a good bend, because when I come to stick this other one, what I don't want is to stick it down completely and we end up with like little butterfly or bat wings, as I call it. Okay, so we're just going to give that a good press down. Now I can go in and peel off the larger bit that I've done. Obviously, if you've done extra strips, you'll need to just do these one at a time. Okay, so that's now coming out. And as I drop this down, you can see I'm still holding it here, but as it's going down, I'm still going in with that bone folder and I'm gradually making sure that that is all nice and flat. And now if I lift that up, that will go flat down. Okay, it is a little bit weird because I've got the ribbon on the other side, which is not helping matters, keeping it lying flat, but that's what we're gonna do. Now I'm gonna take off the next strip, and I can see that this doesn't interfere with that scored join there, so we're just going to stick that one down. And now I can go in again with my bone folder. I'm just going to give that a little bend. Okay, just making sure that that is sitting in. And then we're going to undo the tape. And we're going to gradually ease that down, like so, before I stick the rest of it down. Okay. And that is now nice and flat, and now I can lift that up. Okay, and that is our hinge with our handle on our album ready for the pages. Okay, so that will just need a little bit of working backwards and forwards, but that will start to give. So we're just going to test it in our box just to make sure that that is plenty of space in there for it to tuck in. And as you can see, I've used the same paper that I've used on the outside, so it just blends it in nicely. But that's just my taste. You can obviously change it up however much you like, but you've got plenty of movability in there. Okay, so let's just move that box to the back. So the next bit really is just to talk about the base pages, which I've already pre-cut. Okay, and so the base pages are 4 3/4 inches by 6 1/4 inch. You need 6 of those because we're going to have 2 for each hinge that are going to attach. Okay, all right. And what I've done is that on the 4 3/4 inch side, I've scored the 1/2 inch coming down. Now I haven't put any tape on these. I don't do that until the very end. Okay, but what I am going to do, let's just move this scoreboard out of the way, don't need that. What I am going to do on my base pages is write numbers on it, so I know which one I'm going to be working on and what's going to be the top and what's going to be the bottom. So I'm just going to put a T for the top, that's side 1. T at the top, that's side 2. T at the top, side 3. T at the top, side 4. T at the top, side 5. 5, okay. T at the top, that's side 6. T, that's 7. T 8. T 9. T 10. T 11, and our last page T 12. So when we come to put our put our bits on our pages, then it's easier to know which ones we are grabbing first. Okay, and then in the album, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a T at the top. This is going to be the front, and a T at the top, and this is the back, and a T at the top. So I know exactly which way round I want the album to go. Okay, so I suppose the next bit will be to do the inside covers. So I'm just going to move these base pages to one side, and we'll get everything ready for that. Right, so I've prepped everything for my front inside cover and the back inside cover. So we'll start with the front cover first. Now this is a horizontal pocket and a flap. Okay, I've already gone ahead and made my photo mats, so I'm just going to put them to one side, and I'll talk about photo mats later when we come to do the decoration. But while I was busy with the black cardstock, I thought I might as well get those done and out of the way. Okay, so for your front inside cover, we're going to need some magnets as well. Okay, and basically we're going to have 2 magnets going on one either side, I think. Or have I put one? I might have put one on here, one set actually, just for the front. And then we're going to have the flap coming down. So on the pocket, you'll see it says it's 5 3/4 inches by 4 inches, and you score 1/2 inch on what I call 2 short sides and one long side. So I've already scored my 1/2 inch going all the way round, so it just leaves that top edge, which is going to be the top of our pocket. And I've already put my red liner tape in within those score lines that we've just done. Okay, and what I'm going to do is get my, let's just move that stuff out of the way. Okay, I'm going to cut diagonally across to where the score lines cross over, and then I'm going to do a little wonky bit on the way out. So I'm going to cut it straight in to there. So basically we are mitering the corner, but we're giving it a little wonky bit. Okay, all right, because my 45-degree angle is not very good. And then I'm just going to repeat the same on the other side. So I'm going to come in to there, and I'm just going to wonk the scissors a little bit. And now if I fold these back, where's my lovely burnish? Here we go. I'm just going to fold that on there as well. And fold on this bottom bit. Okay, you'll see that where I've done that wonky bit, that we haven't got any of these two pieces overlapping, which means that that's going to sit nicely on our cover. And then the flap is 4 3/4 inches by 5 3/4 inches. So on the 5 3/4 inch side, I've scored 1/2 inch again, and I've just rounded those corners. Okay, so I'm just going to fold that over, and I'm going to give that a little press like that. So what's going to happen is that the flaps, the pockets rather, is going to sit at the bottom there, and then the flap's going to come in and down like so with one magnet. If you want to put 2 magnets in, then you can do one either side. That's absolutely fine, but I've just put on the pattern for 1 magnet. Okay, so let's get this done. Now I'm going to take off just the tape at the bottom of the pocket. Okay, and I'm going to add a little bit of wiggle glue, wiggle squeaky glue. Okay, and I'm just going to line this up. Now I've allowed myself 1/8 of an inch to come from the bottom, and also to come in sort of almost from that front edge. Let's just move that over just a fraction. Like I said, this is why we have the glue on our tape, and making sure that I've cleared that edge as well, and that's not too bad. Okay, so we're going to stick that down like so. And because I haven't sorted out my patterned papers yet for the decorating for the album, I'm going to put a strip of black tape across there. So if I decide to do some paper piecing, because I know I'm only limited with so many pages of this range that I'm using, I might have to paper piece. So just to help with the transition of the photo mats going in and out nice and smoothly, we're just going to add a little bit of tape there, you see, and then that will come up. But if I've got enough paper, I will come down and do the whole inside cover, which will cover that bit. So depending on what you've got as well, but the pattern does have the measurements for the whole page. Okay, I'm just being a little bit frugal with the paper range that I'm using. Okay, so we're just going to take off the tape like so when it stops sticking to everything, and now I can just bring that up and gently making sure I've got a nice straight edge coming in and down on that side. And that is our pocket, and my things will now just slide in. Okay, so they just sit in nicely like so. Okay, so we're just going to take those out for a minute, but we know they work. Right, now I'm going to turn it upside down. Okay, and this is going to be the top, and we're going to come in again about 1/8 of an inch. And when I put these on, I need to make sure that I line these edges up with the pocket and that it's all nice and straight. So I'm just having a little look. Now sometimes on the scoreboard, if you've not scored it strongly enough, and when you fold it, it can slightly put things out of alignment a little bit. So I'm just checking to see. No, I think we're good on there. So I'm going to take off the red liner tape. I'm going to add a little bit of glue because I just need to make sure that I've got this folded and it's going to be nice and straight. So I'm going to go with the top bit, just rest that on there for a minute. That's lining up with that. That's giving me a straight edge. Let's just check. And I think we are good to go. There we are. Let's just see, that's just coming over just a fraction. So I'm just going to line that up. Let's just give that an extra crease. I think we are slightly out of alignment, but I think that's where I folded. So let's just drop that down. That's better. Okay. So do take a little bit of time just to make sure that they are nice and straight. Okay. Because your eye will be drawn to the top. Once you put your patterned paper on, all you'll see is that straight line on the top there. Okay. So now we're just going to put the magnet in. So the magnets I've got one there and one here. So I'm literally just going to start at the top here. We'll just put one in. I'm just going to add a little bit of tape. Now, if you've got time, you can glue these on and just go with the glue, but I'm just going to stick a little bit of tape on here. And when I use the tape, I just make sure that I come in more than a 1/8 of an inch, because my paper is going to come up to 1/8 of an inch, and that should then cover that. There we go. And we're just going to put the magnet on there. A little bit of glue. Like so. Come on, glue. Oh, I think we've got a bit of a blockage. There we are. Okay. And now I can just fold that over, making sure that's nicely in alignment with everything. Okay, now I can see where that magnet needs to go, so I can pop that down. And then I'm just going to add a bit of tape to secure that in place. And once that is done, then we are ready for our decoration. So I can take that off and I can just tuck these in like so, so I know that they're ready. Come on, in you go. It's because I haven't got my paper in on there, it's catching on the little lugs. Okay, oh, actually I should have taken those down a little bit more. Okay, I'll snip those down a little bit. All right, I can faff with those later. Okay, let's just trial and error with these. All right, so there we are. So that is our first bit done. Okay, and now we just need to do the back. So I've popped the photo mats in here, and actually I've swapped out the ones with the tabs on, because actually I think they were meant for something else and I grabbed them and put them in. So these are just your 4x6 photo mats, which fit in so much better in there. So I'm just going to tuck those in. Okay, and then that's going to come down and do that closure. Perfect. So now for the back. So the back one, is the gatefold doors with flaps and a little like corset closure sort of thing we're going to be making. Now these are my 2 doors, so these are 2 7/8 of an inch, okay, and I've scored 1/2 inch on the 2 7/8 of an inch side, and these are 6 3/4 in length. And then the idea is that we're going to pop these on this back cover like so, and they are going to butt up against each other, okay, and we've got enough wiggle room there to sort of sit them in nicely. And then we've got our little flaps, as I call them. So if you imagine the doors have opened, okay, and these are going to, let's just fold that one, these are going to go one at the bottom and one at the top, so it actually sort of houses all the photo mats and stuff in, okay. So that's what we're going to be doing. So let's put the main doors on first, okay. And now because we're going to have a slight overlap on here potentially, this is probably the only time I'm going to mitre these corners. So we're just going to, where I've got the red line of tape going down where I've scored that 1/2 inch, I'm just going to cut a diagonal up to that score line on both doors, okay, because what we don't want is it getting too bulky in the corners, okay. I'm just going to do that on the other side, just get rid of those bits out the way. And I'm going to start with the door closest to the hinge, so just checking, make sure I've got about 1/8 of an inch gap there, and if I butt that up against there, I've still got enough space that side. So let's peel this off, and I'm going to add a little bit of glue like so, a little wiggle glue, there we are. And I'm now going to fold that back on itself, that's it, so I could just grip that. And I'm just coming in about 1/8 of an inch from where the spine fold is, and I'm making sure that I'm sort of level top and bottom, which I am. So let's just go in and crease that, see how we're doing with that. That's good. Got a little bit of a buckle going on there. Let's smooth that out. There we are, that's better. And now on the other side, I can drop this one in and hold that down. And just to hold these down, this door down, I'm just going to use my little clips just to stop that door from bouncing when I'm lining it up. Okay. All right, and then that's going to come in, and we're going to butt that right up against like so, and then I can drop that down. Perfect. So we're just going to take off the red line of tape. I'm going to add a little bit of glue. There we are, a bit of wiggle, squeaky glue. Okay. And now I need to make sure that I line it up with the top and the bottom of the other door, and that the front is butted up nice and straight, making sure I'm not going underneath that. Let's bring that out just a fraction. I'm just making sure I can feel it with my fingers if it's nice and flat. There we are, and we are down. Okay, so there are doors on. Just going to open that up, and now the little flaps on the inside. So we've got the top and the bottom, so that will sit almost, you've got like almost like a, not quite 1/8 of an inch either side. Okay. And I'm just going to snip off again a little bit on either side just to help those sit flat. Here we go. Oops, bits go flying everywhere. There we are. All right, and now I can stick these in. So when I was sticking these in, I'm going to make sure that they are level with the bottom of the doors and centered in there. And I have corner rounded these, but you don't have to if you don't want to, but I just think it just helps. Right, okay, so I'm just going to line that up, making sure that's nice and level. There we go. Actually, that's a little bit over. Let's move that over a little bit more. So let's see where that is. See where that door is. Okay, so when I close those, you shouldn't be able to see that bottom flap, and then that comes down. Okay, and then we're just going to do the same on the other side. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit of wiggle glue. Oh, squeaky, squeaky. Right, let's fold that down, and again I'm going to do exactly the same on the top, making sure that I'm lining that in with the edge of that and the edge of that, and that is it's centered as because we came out. Let's give that a good crease now. All right, so the idea is that you get your mats and they'll sit in there, and then you can tuck those down, and then these will close over, and then you'll have a little like corset type closure going on. So I'm just going to clip those on there for the moment, just to hold that all in place so I don't lose those bits. And there we are, and we'll do the closure when we come to do all the patterned papers and everything. So that is the inside covers already done and our spine done. So now we're just looking at all the individual pages. So I'm just going to pop that in there. Move that. Is that going to fit in with my little clips on? Maybe not. Let's take one off. There we go. Hold that in there. Take them both off. There we go. Right, so they're all housed safely away, and now we can make a start on all our lovely pages. So I've gone ahead and prepped everything for side one, which is the stable doors and the belly band. Okay, and here's my base page, side one, which is what we're going to pop these onto. And as you can see here, I've already scored, and I've added my red liner tape on the two doors and also on the belly band. So what we're going to do is that we're going to pop the doors on first. Now the doors, because I've called them stable doors, are going to go opposite each other. So I think I'm going to start with that one at the top and then this one at the bottom, but going the opposite way. So we're going to get these put on first, and then we're going to attach the belly band on the inside. And I've allowed a little bit of, not quite 1/8 of an inch all the way round, but there is a little gap going all the way round on the doors. So let's get the first one on. Let me just get my pokey tool. Let's just take off this red liner tape, and I'm going to add my bit of glue, a little wiggly glue. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this one on the top first. So here is my score line, which is going to be where the hinge is going to be attached. So here I'm just going to come in just a little bit from that and just check that edge there, and I've come in a little bit and I've got a nice straight edge at the top. So it's easier to put it on from your score line first, so you know that you haven't sort of affected that. And then this door is going to come in on this side, and I will need to make sure I line up the fold with the edge of that door, and the same on this side, and that they're going to butt up together. It's a bit like we did with the gatefold doors on the back of the album. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that on. Actually, it's just grab one of my little clips and hold that down. A little bit of glue. So this one is nice and straightforward, nice and simple, this one, but it looks quite effective. Okay, and now I'm just going to hold that in. I'm going to line it up, butt that up against, and just stick that down. Okay, so they're my two doors on already. And then we've got the belly band, which is going to come in hopefully in line with the doors, if I've measured this correctly. Okay, so it should be just sitting on the edge there. I can see that one just needs to come over a little bit more on that side. So let me just check those measurements. So we've got 1/2 inch, okay, and that's just under the 6 inch mark. Okay, so we're just going to see how these sit in here, and this is where I'm going to line it up. So I need to make sure that it sits nicely at the top, and that when you bring it down on the bottom, that you've got enough room. So I think we can probably just fold that. Let's just double check. If you find that you're slightly out, don't panic too much. But the idea is that the stable doors sort of cover up, so I can see that I've got a little bit sticking out at the bottom there, so I will need to just take that over just a little bit, and then they will sit in just nicely in line with the doors. Okay, so that will go in. So if I bring that one in and do the one at the bottom first, just checking to make sure that the top one is going to line in. Perfect. I'm just going to take this off. So this is going to be centered in the middle of our doors. Just going to add a little bit of glue like so, and just going to look at where that is folding over. That gives me a rough guide as to where I need to put that. Straighten that up, come over just a little bit. This is why we put the glue on. Just to make sure that that is going to be centered. I can sort of see where the edge of the fold is, so that's going to cover that one, and that will cover that. Perfect. Okay, so I've come up probably about 1/8 inch from the bottom for this bit, and oh, let's just get the tape off. That's split. Where are we? Goodness me. Come on then, tape. There we go. All right, and now just folding that over. That's going to come in on that line, making sure that is nice and straight. Almost come down just a little bit. Didn't put any glue on this bit, did I? That's all right. We've got this. We've got this. Okay, making sure that's nice and straight. There we go. Got there in the end. Okay, so they're going to sit across like that, and then when you open it up, you've got the belly band, and then obviously your photo mat, which is a little bit tight, but it will slot in there. Perfect. Okay, now I've said on the pattern that you can add magnets, so we can put a magnet on here to hold that door down, and one on this side to hold that down. So let's go ahead and do those. So just grabbing 2 magnets, and I'm going to put them on the door first. Just a little bit of glue either side. There we are. Now you can leave yours to sort of dry before you come to do the next bit, but I'm just going to add a little bit of tape on there just to secure those in place. So just going and making sure that I've left more than 1/8 of an inch at the edge, because obviously my paper is going to cover that, like so. Once these have completely dried, I can take the tape off if I need to. Right, okay, and now we're just going to grab our other ones, and we're just going to pop that on there, pop that on there, and now we can fold this over onto the other side. So that's now going to hold that in place, and we can do the same with the other one. Get a good impression. That's it. And then we can just tuck those on, and I can add a little bit of tape just to hold that all in place. Oh, that one's stuck there. There we go, that was good. All right, now I'm just going to add a little bit of tape and another little bit of tape. Okay, so let's just try all that. Perfect. Okay, so that is our stable door done, and then as I said, we've got our photo mat that can sort of tuck in, so that's good. And then on side 2 is our horizontal pocket. So again, I've got my photo mat ready to go. Are they the same size, those ones? Yes, they are. Right, okay. And what I've done is I've just gone round again and done my 1/2 inch score line on the 2 short sides and 1 long side. And we're going to cut across the diagonal to where the score lines meet, and then we're just going to do a little wonky bit, and we're going to come along and do exactly the same on the other corner. So we're sort of mitering the corners, but we're giving it a little extra. Right, let's grab my, and this is exactly the same as how we did the pockets on the front cover, on the inside front cover. Okay, and we're just going to do exactly the same. So we're just going to add some glue to the base, like so. Just add a little bit of glue. Okay, I'm going to turn that round. And again, there's my score line coming down for my hinge, so I need to make sure that I come in just on the edge of that, like so. And then we're just going to peel off and stick that down, and then that will be our pocket done. Perfect. So let's just sit that. I can see I've come in slightly on that one, so it's just come in fraction on that edge there. Is that going to sit better? Yeah, this is where we're just making sure that we're lining everything up okay. How close is that to that hinge? No, we're good. I think we're good. Okay. All right. That's it. So now I'm going to put my tape across the back there. Because like I said earlier, I'm not sure what papers I'm going to be using. And just need that to smooth over, and then we're going to come in on this edge. And there we are. Right, so that is side one done, which is our staple doors and our belly band. And side two is our horizontal pocket, which will, let's just tuck that in there, just so that we can make sure that that fits okay. There we go, and that tucks in and slides in down there. Lovely. Right, on to the next 2 pages. Right, so our next side that we're going to be doing is side 5, which is the acetate frame. Let's just put my photos there for the minute. I haven't done those ones because I just wanted to show you what I'm going to do with that. So here is my base frame, which is 5 1/8 of an inch by 6 5/8 of an inch, and you can see that I put on here to score 1/2 inch on one short side and the 2 long sides. Now this is going to cover the whole of our page, so let me just grab our base page, side 5. Okay, let's move that all out of the way. So this will be pretty much bang on that whole page side. Okay, and when we come to stick this down, if there is any leeway, we are just going to leave a tiniest of gap at the very top of the page. Okay, but first of all we need to put our lovely frame in. So there's my acetate. I'll just put that to one side for the minute. So I've gone round, I've scored all round the 3 sides, and I've put my tape on, and I'm going to flip this over so I've got it on the back. Here is my you can see here where the bubble is going all the way round. So I'm just going to grab my pencil, which I still haven't sharpened, which I do really need. Let's see if I've got a pen, see whether that will show up any better. Okay, so what I've said is that we're going to cut out a 1/2 inch frame. Now bearing in mind I've got a 1/2 inch scored line, so from those 3 sides that I've scored on, I'm going to have to draw in 1 inch. Okay, so let's just see if this pen works any better. No, it doesn't. I'll stick with my pencil. Right, okay, so that's 1 inch coming in from there. So I'm just doing the three areas that I've scored on, the 3 sides that I've scored on. We're coming in at 1 inch from the edge of the paper. Okay. Right. So that compensates, so there's a 1/2 inch, it compensates for that 1/2 inch that we've scored, and the top bit I will just come down by 1/2 inch because we've got no scored section there. Okay, and this is the bit that I'm going to cut out. So now I've got roughly where my lines are going to go. I can now go in and cut those lines and cut out that first bit. So I'm going to come down and do the sides. So I'm coming from that top, coming down to where that pencil line is. I'm going to do the shorter side next, where it's just 1/2 inch. Right, let's line that up. Oops, moved slightly. Hopefully it's not made too much of a okay. I'll just come in and cut down that a little bit. Oh, we're not too bad on that. Okay, and then I'm going to come down and do the other side. Just cut that in that corner, and then I've just got the last bit coming in at the bottom. So I know my cut lines aren't quite lining up with my pencil lines, but it's because my pencil's not sharp. Oops, right, that moved again. Let's just hold that in situ. Hopefully it went the right way. Right, let's just hold that in. Okay, so let's just gently complete these corners. Okay, I think we are done. Okay, that's a slight little trim on that edge there. There we go. Oh, it's near as damn it, as they say. Right. So the acetate. So I've cut the acetate at, what did I cut the acetate at? 3 3/4 by 5 3/4. So I'm hoping that is just going to lie over that gap, which it does. And this is brand new acetate, so not too much cleaning involved. I normally use recycled acetate, so but we're all good with this stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to, now this is 6 mils of red liner tape, and I'm just going to put this right on the edge of the acetate sheet. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that. I've just gone right on that edge, and I'm going to do that all the way around. I always use red liner tape to stick acetate down. I find that, especially like when you're making the frames, that if you use glue, that it will smidgy smudge, and I've just nicked that bit. I didn't mean to do that. I'll just come along this other edge. But I think there are glues on the market like for vellum and stuff like that, so you could maybe try that if you don't have any red liner tape. Okay, I'm just going to drop, that's it, snip that one off. All right, so here is the inside. We know it's the inside bit because that's the outside with the red liner tape. Okay, so I'm going to attach this, and if I lay it on there, you can now see where it is on the black tape. Let me move that out of the way for a minute so you can see it clearer on here. So you've got the black frame bit in the background, and I can maneuver that tape to sit all the way around there, and that's going to close that in. So what we're going to do is take off the first bit, and I'm going to do what I call like little ears. I'm just going to fold a little bit back, and I'm going to do that on the other bits. It just helps to pull it together, pull it apart rather, pull them off when we get them stuck down. Okay. Oops, I had to stick to that, not to my finger. Okay, and here we go, just this other little bit. Okay, so now I've got my little ears sticking out. I can hold on to those bits and just tuck that down. I'm just going to have to bend them round so I can, it's a little fiddly, but I'm just going to attach that bottom one. I'm just gently sticking that down, so we've got contact there, so I can now come out and take that off. That bit, this bit, I can now come and do on the sides. And there we are, and that is our acetate put in to our frame. Now, if you wanted at this stage, you could add another bit of acetate over the top and put some little shaky bits in and make it like a shaker frame. But I'm going to keep this as it is for now. And I'm just going to cut my corners like we've done before. So we're just going to treat it now just like any other pocket. Okay, so I'm going to cut the middle, do a little wonky bit, and we're going to cut across and do another little wonky bit. Just get rid of those bits out of the way, and now we're ready to attach it to our page. So let's just fold these back like so, and we'll get our bone folder. There we are. I'll just give those a nice good burnish. Okay, making sure we've got a nice finish, and let's just put it up against the page. So like I said, this is going to sit almost flat against the edges. You can come in just literally just a smidgen, making sure that we're keeping the hinge fold clear. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the tape on as always. Let me do this bit. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue. I'm just being careful with the glue on here because I don't want it to smudge out onto the acetate. Right, and now I'm just going to line this up as close as I can. That little smidgy bit. That's a technical term, that, everybody, a smidgy bit. Okay, so that's gone in. A little bit of tape to go along the bottom. Oh, I've run out of black tape. Good job I've got another one to hand. All right, that's going to tuck down on there. And now I can put the other bits up. But before I do that, I'm just going to give the inside a little bit of a wipe just to get rid of any bits and pieces, because once I've stuck it down, I won't be able to do that. Now we're just going to take the tape off. That's one, and two. There we go. And now we can just bring this up. And I'm just going to gently, so I'm just following that line along there first, along that edge. And I can come over and stick that other bit down. I know we can see the tabs and that underneath, but once we've put our paper in there, you're not going to see that. Okay, and we'll just give that a good burnish. And that is our acetate pocket done. Now, the photo mat that's going to go in here, it depends really. I've just done a small little one to go in. You can do a bigger one. So I've just cut out my 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch black cardstock and my 3 inch by 4 inch photo mat, and I've got a little tab here, so I'm just going to fold that. If you don't have anything like this, you could cut a little square to go on there, or maybe a couple of circles to create your own little tab. All right. And I'm just going to add a little bit of glue. Okay, now there are dies or punches out on the market that you can buy that will give you this effect. I'm just going to tuck that on there. Oops. Tuck it on there, try and center it. That's going to come over like so. Just going to pinch that like that. Then I'm going to put on my photo mats. Now I just put on a couple of little bits of tape, because if I'm gifting this to somebody, they can remove the photo mat paper, and it is literally just a bit of photocopy paper. Okay, so they can just sort of whip that off, and then they can add their photo. So I'm just going to tuck that on there. And then what I've got is my crocodile, and I'm just going to punch a hole in the center as much as I can. I always go slightly off Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. And then what I can do is tie either a bit of ribbon or baker's twine or something like that. And then that will just sort of tuck in. And then you've got nice long lengths there that you can pull out just to sort of see and change your photo around, etc. Okay, so that is side 5 done. And then our other side is our secret pocket. Okay, and again, I've got my photo mat there, but I put a little tab on the side there. This is going to take up the whole of that side. Okay, so when we come to stick this on, we need to make sure we've got it lined up against those 3 edges there and the base here as well, where the hinge is going to join. So huge big pocket. Again, 2 short sides, 1 long side for our 1/2 inch scoring. I'm going to come in and cut across like so, and then I'm going to fold this over and fold it over. There we go. I'll just get my burnish tool, little burnish. There we are. And I'm just going to put it up against it just to see. So you will see that that is going to come in like so. Okay, and then I can stick that down and then we can crack on with that. So exactly the same way that we do with our all of our pockets. Okay, so when we come to stick our pocket down, you've got to imagine that's side 5. So as you fold it over, we want the opening to come on the outer edge here. So it's opposite where the hinge is. Okay, so let's just turn that around. So we're going to attach that to where the base is, like we've done before, like with the vertical pocket. Bearing in mind that we need to keep that as level as we can at the top, and you'll notice that you've got just a, here we are, technical term again, smidgen of a gap between the edge of the hinge and score line. So let's just pop this on. I'm just going to get some glue on there. Okay, I'm just going to, so there's my top, that's the edge that needs to have the opening. There's my opening, and now we're just going to line that up as close as we can, but try not to impact on our pocket. And I can I'm just wiggling this about a little bit because I want to make sure that that edge is there. And now I can seal that down, because after all it is meant to be a sort of secret pocket. Okay, and now let's just grab my new tape and just going to, come on tape, there we go, put a strip down along the edge like we've done before, and now I can peel these off and stick these down. Before I do this though, if you wanted to not make it a secret pocket, you could get a little notch punch and cut out a little finger point there, but because I've put a tab on my photo mat, I don't necessarily need to do that. All right, but that's just an extra little thing that you can do. So now we're just going to take the tape off and stick. Oh, I'm getting in a bit of a mess here, Deb. Okay, and now I can fold that over, making sure that that is going to line up nicely with that edge there and with the other side. So now we've got our secret little pocket that will house our photo mat. And the only thing that doesn't make it secret is the fact that we've got the little tab bit sticking out, okay? But it's just so that people know that it's there. Now, on the other side, I've said that we can make a envelope, okay? And the envelope will stick on there. And I will do my envelope in patterned paper. So when I come to decorate it, we will make the envelope then. Okay, but that is side 5 and 6 done. So that's the end of our part 2. So as you can see, we've made our album, we've put our ribbon on the back with our patterned paper, we've got our front and back sorted on the inside covers, and then obviously we've done sides 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So do keep a lookout for part 3, which is the final part, where we will be completing the other 6 pages of the sides, and we will be doing all our decoration, etc. Okay, so I look forward to seeing you all then. Take care. Bye.